a right cross over Western oriented stitches, insert the needle into the leading leg that's in front on the second stitch, knit into it, and clear it out of the way of that first stitch, knit into that, pull both off the needle. And if the stitches are Eastern oriented and you don't want to reorient them, then you need to reach in between, you need to reach through there, insert your needle into it, pull that leading leg in front, knit into it, and then knit into the leading leg of the second stitch. That's for Eastern oriented stitches. Personally, I think it's easier to reorient them, but if the fabric is loose like this, you don't have to. You can just insert it from in between. And if you want a left cross, and here we have two Eastern oriented stitches, and left crosses are easiest with Eastern oriented stitches. Insert needle into the back, to the leading leg, which is in back, knit into it, and then knit into the leading leg of the first stitch. Obviously, if the stitches have two different orientations, you can modify this however you like. Okay, so Western oriented stitches, but we want left cross. So you go from behind, you catch that leading leg that was in front, you pull it through. Okay, again, try to stay in focus. Approaching from behind that first stitch, go into the leading leg of the second one, and pull it through, and then go into the leading leg of the first one, pull it through, and pull both parent stitches off the needle. Okay, so we have two Eastern oriented stitches here. Leading leg is behind the needle, trailing leg is in front. Since we want the second stitch to be behind the first stitch, we approach it from the back and knit into the leading leg, like so. Then we look at that first stitch, make sure it's not tangled up with that second stitch, knit into the leading leg, and there you have a one stitch cross. Okay, we'll do it again. Two Eastern oriented stitches, approach the second one from the back, knit it, approach the first one again from the back because they're Eastern oriented, knit it, and it comes off the needle. Now, again, if you have Western oriented stitches, you have a choice. If your stitches are Western oriented, like so, you can slip them to reorient them, or you can do a little bit of gymnastics with your needle. You can approach the leading leg from behind. You see that? You bring your needle behind the first stitch and knit into that leading leg. You're going to have to do a little bit of gymnastics to bring it out like so. Okay, let me try that again. Try to keep in focus. Bring the needle between the two. Bring the needle between the two. Knit into that leg. Okay, you've knit into that leg, and then you've got to bring it back through so that the stitch is knit and it's not hung up at all on that first stitch. Then you approach that leading leg of that first stitch and you knit through it. And again, structurally identical, just got to it a little bit differently. Do that again. So say you want your stitches Western oriented. but you want to cross right over left. You bring your needle between to catch that leading leg. You bring your needle through and then again, okay? Because you have to knit through this stitch, which involves bringing the yarn all the way through to this point, but then you have to get it behind this first stitch. So you have to go between the two, okay? Between the two. And then don't pull anything off, knit through that first stitch, like so. Now, then you come across something like this. That's pretty straightforward, right? You either reorient the stitches so that they sit the way you want them to, so that you can get to the leg that needs to be in front or back. In the case of a left twist, they work easier Eastern. In the case of a right twist, they work easier Western, but you can manage to fudge it by going between the stitches to knit them. When you're dealing with 2/2, that doesn't really work. So in this case, it's a 2-stitch over 2 left cross. If I want to do this over Eastern oriented stitches, it's pretty straightforward. I knit into the leading leg of the 3rd stitch, and then I knit into the leading leg of, without splitting the stitch, of the 4th stitch, right? Okay, try to keep it in focus. So I've got the last 2 knit, first 2 are still hanging out. I bring everything forward like so to the tips, but again, first 2 stitches are still unknitted, still hanging out there. I knit into them, pull one off, knit into the next one, pull that one off, and then drop the last 2 off the needle, and there, I have it, a 2/2. Now, this is not something you would want to do over Western oriented stitches. So I'm going to undo it and demonstrate why. Okay, so I have those same 4 stitches, but now they're Western oriented. Now, gymnastics say I can do this to knit that 2nd stitch, pull it in front, right? But then I have to do it again. Pull it in front. And the tension in these 2 stitches, these are so tight right now that when I try, I mean, it's possible, you can do it, to bring it forward so I can knit these first 2. Yes, it is possible, but it is rather unpleasant. So I did it, but these stitches here, because I'm working at the very tip of the needle, are very tight. So if you want to do it that way, you gotta loosen them up a bit. So yes, it's possible, not really desirable. In the case of 2/2, I would reorient the stitches before working them. Four stitches, Western oriented. I want to do a right cross this time instead of a left cross. So, insert your needle into that leading leg, the 3rd stitch, and knit into it. And then insert your needle into the leading leg of the 4th stitch. And it's kind of tight because of the previous stitch. being pulled so far, so I'm going to pull on it a little bit. There. Okay, so I've got that leading leg of the 4th stitch. I'm going to knit into it also. And pull back so that they are normal sized and not really tiny. And then I'm going to knit into the 1st stitch and pull it off, and knit into the 2nd stitch and pull it off. And again, I would not recommend doing that with unreoriented stitches, simply because it would be very, very dense working. And it's pretty much impossible if it's really tight knitting to begin with. It needs to be this kind of loose fabric if you're going to do more than 1/1. 1/1 you can do when the fabric's quite tight, but 2/2 is a lot more difficult. And that's cables. Eastern and Western oriented stitches. No cable needle, no loose stitches.